What drives every decision that you make is emotional. And when I say that, I'll always have a lot of people kind of cock their head at me just a little bit and go, no, I'm a cognitive guy, I'm rational. And yes, you are rational, and that is true. But ultimately, every decision has an emotional gain, an emotional goal. Even what you just did earlier, if we peel away the onion on why you chose, what you're going to come to is, it feels good. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel of importance, of service. So emotional intelligence is this recent delve into research, if you will, on how we are intelligent with our emotions. Are we aware of what we feel? Most of the time, we don't do that. Most of the time, we do not analyze that. But every day, when you get up and you go to work and you experience other people and you experience reports that don't match up and you have to deal with difficult IRS people or whatever it is you're dealing with, all day long, the emotional part of your brain is active. All day long. Michael Singer wrote the book, The Untethered Soul. And in The Untethered Soul, he says the brain is constantly chattering. It is all the time going. And it is not that we necessarily have control of that. It just does it. And there's a lot of times, I'm sure many of you have been trying to go to sleep. You can't shut it off. It won't stop. And Michael Singer makes a really interesting case that has to do with emotional intelligence. And what that is that he says, and this kind of blew me away. I'd never really thought of it until I read this in his book. He said that you are not that chatter. Really? What do you mean? How is that possible? This is my brain. This is me, right? Yes, that's me. No, he says that you are not that chatter. What he says is that brain, that part of your brain is on automatic. It's constantly evaluating, constantly sending messages, constantly going. And you are not in charge of that chatter. It just happens. You're the one who's in there having to deal with the chatter. Good emotional intelligence is we're going to use the emotional information that we have to guide our behavior, and then we're going to use rational skills to guide our emotion. All right? See the connection. So we're going to use both. We're going to use both, but we're going to talk a little bit about this whole EI thing. The last selfie. I love this picture. The last selfie. The reason I have this up here is because, and I have 2 cats, and I used to laugh at cat people. I was like, oh, cat people, cats, come on. But I got 2 cats. We adopted them. They were like 3 weeks old, and we had to bottle feed them. I love those cats. I'll have to tell you, they are the most awesome animals. But anyway, this cat knows how to take a selfie, but doesn't know when to take a selfie. And that is a lot about emotional intelligence. All of us, of course, have emotional intelligence, just like all of us have intellectual intelligence. It's just we're all on a spectrum of that. We're all good at some, not good at others, just like on the intellectual side. Large corporations have begun to study emotional intelligence. And I wanted to show you one of the ones that Eastman Kodak did. This is Robert Warden, the Director of Business Development. And basically what he says is that the ability to relate, to speak up, to be heard, to be comfortable with yourself, these are the kinds of abilities that make the crucial difference. It's the X factor in management. And you all have experienced this. You know what I'm talking about. You've worked with people who have that. And you've worked with people who don't have that. And it's a dramatic difference. emotional competencies of successful managers. You're really gonna like this. What they did is that they took CEOs, people who do hiring and firing, higher-ups in companies, and they interviewed them and they said, we're looking for what are the competencies that you look for in a successful hire. And they came up with 15 things. 11 of them were emotional. 11 were emotional competence. So you're smart, technically, intellectually, you're smart. Are you smart on the emotional side? And let's look at a couple of these competencies. Initiative, and there's a whole list, but I just identified these that I thought you might relate to. Initiative, achievement, drive and adaptability, influence, team leadership, political awareness. Basically what they're saying is that, do you know what's going on in the office? Do you know what the power chain is? Do you understand all that sort of goes along with corporate life if you're in a corporate situation? Do you understand how to function in that? And do you know how to emotionally deal with a corporation? That's not always an easy thing. And empathy, self-confidence, and I love this last one, developing others. Developing others. True emotional intelligence is being able to use those skills to be able to help people be better at what they do. Anybody know what family of origin? Mom, dad, that's what we grew up in. I want to tell you a little story. This is a story of my dad, okay? And my dad was a hard-working guy and all in all a good guy. But he had a problem. He was an alcoholic. And he wasn't one of these alcoholics that drinks and he's like a lot of fun alcoholic. He's one of these alcoholics that drinks and he's like really angry. Now this is really ironic because my dad would never allow anyone to be angry in our house. It's so ironic. He gets drunk and he's like this wild, crazy man. And he's angry and he's telling everybody else, you can't be angry, even though he's doing things that would make anybody angry. It's crazy making. Absolutely crazy making. And so what do we do? What do we do as kids when you're in a situation like that? Maybe some of you were in that situation growing up. You learn to really read the environment. Is Dad okay? Is he feeling all right? I want to make sure I don't get angry. I want to make sure that doesn't happen because he cannot tolerate uncomfortable emotions. He cannot. He had no gift for that. My point is this, is that we're all born with whatever brain we have and whatever capabilities that brain is going to give us. And then we are born into an environment that then teaches us how to deal with all of these emotions that we feel every day. And the things that we learn sometimes aren't very healthy. And they really don't serve us later on. What do you avoid? If you figure out what you avoid, then oftentimes you're going to figure out that there's an uncomfortable emotion associated with that particular thing. So if you don't like being around a certain person in your office, or you find yourself shying away from certain situations, my guess would be is that it makes you feel uncomfortable. And your feelings, basically, your emotions are essentially telling you, they're communicating to you, you know what, if you don't want to feel uncomfortable, you probably ought to go over there. But here's the problem. You can't get away from it. You just can't get away from it. Allow your emotions, first of all, by recognizing that they are not your tormentor, they are your teacher. They're not your tormentor, they're your teacher. They're not there to hurt you. Are they uncomfortable? Yes. Are they difficult to keep inside for any period of time? Yes. But what I would suggest to you is they don't last that long. What will we say about emotions? They're fast. They're fast in, they're fast out. The problem is not the emotion, actually. The emotion is natural. The emotion is normal. It's not the emotion that's the problem. The problem is that we think about the emotion. Our problems start when we try to analyze, what is that emotion about? So my suggestion to you is this, is that understand yourself really, really well and be able to catch as quickly as possible the process that you're in, the emotion that you're in, and then begin treating it as your friend, not your enemy. What's it trying to tell me?